Hey everyone, welcome. This is the White Table Talk podcast. Welcome and thank you for being with us. This is a podcast where we'll have conversations with young adults, for young adults, and Gen Z. My name is PJ. I'm excited to dive in with you. Welcome to another episode of the White Table podcast. Here we are, CITS Young Adults. This is our episode 5. We have been on a little bit of a sabbatical because we do a youth and young adult internship at our church, and so I've been a little busy with it. But today we're here with an important episode. I got some new friends with me, some of our young adults at our church here. They're going to introduce themselves, say who they are, and then we're going to get started today.
Slay.
So go ahead.
Slay.
Who wants to go first?
You got it.
Okay. Hi, I'm Kika. Fun fact about me is I work at Cannon Coffee and I'm a barista.
Cool. That's my favorite
Slay.
coffee show, guys.
Wow.
Absolutely
Hi,
love that
I'm
place.
Aaliyah, and fun fact about me is I've done 7 sports in my life.
That's crazy.
Were you good at any?
Yeah, all of them.
Oh,
That's
what was your
Slay.
What was your
That was
favorite?
That was my favorite.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call it a sport, but cheer.
I do think cheer's a sport. I'm
Oh,
a girl
great.
dad.
You are a
Absolutely.
girl dad.
Hey, we are going to go right into our episode today. So at our service last month, we talked about relationships. We talked about dating. We actually had these 8 filters of dating. I'm going to go through those 8 filters, and I have no idea what questions Aaliyah and Kika have come with. Maybe Derek has some too, but Derek and I are going to try to answer the questions. We're going to go through as many as we possibly can. But we basically had a service. The title of our service was No Returns, because there's no returns on a relationship or on a marriage. And so we walked through 8 filters. I think the world is kind of crazy. How do you know who the right person is? How do you know who you're supposed to marry or who you're even supposed to date? And so we walked through this idea of these filters to date, and there was 8 of them. Number 1 is, are they constantly and consistently pursuing Jesus? Number 2 is, how is your friendship with them? We talked about that sex is easy to figure out. Friendship is hard sometimes to figure out, which you can go back and watch the service to figure out a little bit more we said about that. But number 3, we said, how are their friends? So what kind of friends do they hang out with? Number 4 is, how is their family? It is true that maybe you don't marry their family, but you're going to be involved with their family. We also talked about trauma and the way people deal with conflict in their families, that every family has drama, every family has conflict. There's probably not a perfect family. So it doesn't negate, or it doesn't say that I can't marry that person because of their family, but you should be able to have a conversation about it and find out where they are. Number 5, we talked about, how do they respond when they're tested? Do they fight to be right, or do they fight for resolution? In a relationship is important. Number 6, what are their dreams? Number 7, what does your family and your friends say about them? Proverbs 11:4 says, where there is no counsel, people fail, but in a multitude of counselors there is safety. And then number 8, we talked about, do you trust them? And so if you don't trust them, they're probably not one that you could continue dating. So
Probably not.
I'm going to open up. Aaliyah, Kika, what out of the 8 filters that we talked about, what do you think was the most surprising?
You
wanna
go first.
Okay. I feel like for me was how they're responding for when they're tested, because of the fact of fighting for resolution versus fighting to be right. I feel like that's something that I've not heard hit on before, like the way you hit on it.
You don't know how we hit on it, but you can go back and watch the service.
Oh yeah,
It's
you
on
can go back and
YouTube.
listen to that.
I think the one that surprised me the most was asking, how are their friends? Just because I feel like you said, looking at the person, I don't really care how their friends are. So, having to look at that and be like, how are their friends, on the outside? Those are the people they hang out with. So that one was kind of a little surprising for me.
Yeah, that one we talked about, just for a little bit of context. If you haven't heard the service, we basically talked about who they surround themselves with is important, because if you don't like their friends, and sometimes we say, oh, their friends are just dumb or whatever, but that's people that they're going to surround your family with one day. Mm-hmm. And so it's important to know these are the types of people that they're around, because I know this is who they're going to put my family around one day. So any, Derek?
Not anymore. None of them surprise me now. But when I was dating, I wish I would have taken number 3, the same one as Kika. How are their friends? Destiny's friends hated me. Legit, her best friend hated me for years.
It's crazy.
So it was a little awkward for a while.
Does she still hate you?
They're no longer friends.
Nice. Solid.
Change your man and change your friend.
Yeah, we know who won that.
Oh.
Let me stop. Let me stop.
Hey, I think these conversations are so important, because the reason that we had this conversation, the reason that we talk about it is, if you think about in life, we learn a lot of things, but no one teaches us like how to have a right relationship, or who we get relationship advice from people, according to statistics, are they've had failed relationships. So we're getting failed advice from someone that failed that didn't do it before us. But not only relationships, but like when we're talking about relationships, we don't take a class in school on like, what is love? How do I love? How do I receive love? With no dads in the pictures, culture's teaching us how to date. And so the Bible has a lot to say about it. And so that's why we want to open it up. But for this podcast, we're going to do some question and answers. So who wants to start?
I can start.
That's Bella in the background, by the way. Not in the podcast playing
She had
music.
one job.
Oh no. I feel like you talked a lot about settling. So I feel like to dive deeper into what that really means, of the difference of, okay, somebody who has high expectations in a relationship compared to somebody who doesn't, and like where that would go, where that line is of, okay, I'm settling or I'm not settling, if that makes sense.
I mean, there's a difference between, like, maybe the question you're asking was the difference between settling versus compromising. Maybe like, hey, because they don't like this restaurant and it's my favorite restaurant, so now we go here. Like, is that settling or compromising? So we definitely compromise things in a relationship because we want to support the other person. But I think settling is, are you changing your view on something to be with this person? Are you changing your beliefs or your values? Or is your dreams changing and maybe lessening because of this person? And then you're settling for something. The other question is if you're not happy single, then you're not going to be happy dating.
Right.
And so I think where we miss it is we try to say, well, this relationship's going to fix me, and not getting ourselves right single. And so then we find people that are settling because they just want a relationship. If your desire is just to have a relationship, chances are you're probably going to be settling.
Right.
But if you work on yourself and you're happy as a single person, you can be happy in a relationship as well. So I guess the difference, how do you know if you're settling or not, is, are you changing? Are you becoming who you want to become? Or are you becoming something else? And if you're becoming something else, or you find yourself lowering your standard of things, then you're probably settling.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I think you said that really well. And I think being in that single season is realizing what your values are. Like, what are your hardcore values? Because there are certain things that you're willing to compromise, live in Miami instead of Orlando, right? But, for us, having that Christian faith, having a relationship with God, that is a value that is very important, and you can't settle on, you can't compromise on. So it's figuring out what are those things in your life that matter that much that you can't compromise on those things, and that's would be the difference.
That's good.
Any other questions?
Good. Yeah. So we were kind of talking about it a little bit earlier, but just about like the idea of submission, just because like, when do you think is the right time?
Oh, wait. We have to talk about our relationship status.
Oh.
So we have married, dating, and single all on the podcast. So
Yeah.
I've been married for 14 years.
I've been married for 7 years.
I've been single for 2 years.
And I've been dating for 4 months.
4 months in. You got to
4
start
months
somewhere.
in. Yeah.
Look at that.
Shout out to Jonathan.
Yeah.
Jonathan.
Hey.
Go ahead.
Okay, so in the grand idea of submission, when do you think is the right time to start kind of like taking that serious? Just because I know, like, for me, when I was younger, I used to struggle with the thought of like, what the heck? Like, I'm not doing that. But then, of course, after growing my relationship with the Lord, I understand it a lot more now. But now that I'm dating in a relationship, my parents are like, oh, like, do this for him. And I'm like, but he's not my husband. Like, what the heck? So now I'm in the season of like trying to navigate what am I submitting to and what am I not, if that makes sense.
What's an example of something to do? Like, what's an example?
Like,
If it's Spanish culture, it's like serve him a plate.
Yeah, literally. And
Like-
I'm like, he knows where the stuff is. Like, he can get his stuff. Like, it's okay. That was a good one, yeah.
So I would say that's more honor, not submission.
Yeah.
So I'm honoring you by making you a plate or going out of your way. I think
Yeah.
some of that is even in a dating, like, if it's your house, then you probably do that for the other person. And if you're at my house, I probably do that because I know where the stuff is. And especially when you're getting to know each other, like, you don't want to go in somebody's kitchen and you're looking for stuff and you don't know where it is. So it's more of I'm making you comfortable because you're in my environment. More of an honor, not a submission. I think when we talk about submission, when the Bible says that the husband or the wife is supposed to submit to the husband and the husband's supposed to love the wife, we broke that down in our service. After you know who you're dating and like this is the qualification to become married. Basically, this dating phase is finding out like, is this somebody I'm willing to submit to? So submitting is more to the authority and the direction that they're taking me into. Doesn't mean, hey, I'm your husband, so you have to submit to me. Go make me dinner. That's more of an honor. That's more of a, I want to show you love.
Yeah.
So I'm going out of my way to care for you or do something for you. Submission is direction. So it's like directing the family of where to go or directing goals of where to go and where we're going as a family together. So I would say that's probably your examples are more, when do
Like
I honor them? And
Yeah.
maybe some people are just more hospitable than other people, right?
Yeah.
I think some of that goes to, again, your house. And so you do it. The when to do that, when not to do that. I don't know. If you're dating and you want to impress a person, you want to honor them quicker than later, obviously, or they're probably going to deuce out anyway. So, yeah. You got anything to add there?
As my wife struggled a lot with submission. And it's, I think the best way is to learn how to submit to like little things at first, right? And as your relationship grows, you can hand over more and more. Submit to what he wants to do for a date night and see if he got any real ideas in his head. You know what I mean? And it's like that slow, like PJ was saying, that that idea of where his leadership will take you, right?
Yeah.
So give him those little things at first and see what he does with them.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're not willing to submit to little things, then big things in life later, you won't be willing to submit to. So then that becomes a red flag instead of a filter thing. So interesting.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
I have another one. You talked a lot about dreams lining up and callings and all that different stuff. So I feel like, how does that necessarily work? Because I feel like some people could look into, oh, well, Roxy works in the hospital, but PJ is a pastor. Their quote-unquote dreams don't line up. So what does that necessarily look like, and how does that work? Of like, okay, our lines have to be the same, or our dreams have to be the exact same thing, or what?
Well, Roxy being a nurse and me being a pastor are not our dreams. That's our occupations. Our dreams are to love people. And so we 100% line up.
That's
we want to
good.
love and serve people. And so both of our occupations line up with loving
That
and
makes
serving
sense.
people. So sometimes we get confused thinking that there's a bell somewhere ringing. If you're listening, you can block it out. It's okay. Sometimes in anything in life, we think that our occupation is, that's our calling, that's our gifting. But the truth is my occupation could change tomorrow. I could walk into the church office tomorrow and be like, I don't want to be a ministry anymore. I'm out. Roxy could walk into her job tomorrow and say, I'm tired of being a nurse. I quit. Our dreams and our values, the calling that God has given us is how we love and we serve people, not necessarily our occupation. I have no idea what I'm called to do 5 years from now when it comes to, but getting a paycheck. But I do know that I'm called to always love and serve people.
Yeah.
And so what do you do when your dreams of, hey, my dream in life is only to make a bunch of money, and my dream in life is to serve and love people, those probably don't line up.
Right.
And so you got to have some deep conversations about, I don't know how we're going to make these things work.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with serving people. There's nothing wrong with money. And maybe those two can blend. But that's your conversations of your dreams of like, what do we want to do as a family? How do we want to serve people? How do we want to love people? Your occupation you can be doing anything. Your dreams are more, what do you do in your free time? How do you spend your free time? How do you spend the time that you have volunteering and serving people? A whole lot more. I'm just blessed that my occupation is getting to serve people at a church.
Yeah.
But if I wasn't employed by the church, I would still want to do this to serve people as well. So, dreams are kind of bigger than just your career.
Yeah.
Would you say that in the whole like thing of dreams, would you say that it's not necessarily the dream, but like let me word this correctly, hold on. So like, let's say I have a dream, you have a dream, and they're different dreams, but they're still like good dreams. But are we supporting each other in those dreams in order to like,
Yeah, so Jonathan's not on this podcast, but we'll just throw it out. I don't know what his long-term dream is. Right now he's a barber,
Yeah.
right? And so you're supporting his dream in not only just, again, profession, but putting out all the things that God's put in his heart.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, one day, is that to own his own shop? Is that to do whatever? And so how can he glorify God in doing that? You're encouraging him to bring God into his workplace. And how can he do that? Opening up his eyes to say, you can serve people by using it to do this way, and vice versa, same thing. And so, again, we get caught up in this occupation idea, but each one's goal or each one's responsibility and dating before you get into marriage is God has a calling and a purpose on us as individuals. So my job as a husband is, how can I help my wife understand and help pull the godly things out of her? How can she see the gifts and the anointing that God has on my life and help pull that out? And we encourage in those things.
Yeah.
Then your jobs will always line up. Like you can always figure that out.
That's good.
Solid.
A good example of that is if you watch like Hallmark movies, they always have like this girl is
Hallmark
this
movies.
yeah, this girl, she's got the
Small town
perfect
boy.
Yeah, well no, the girl, she is from a small town and she moves away and she's dating the perfect guy that's got all the money and the perfect job, but maybe their visions for life don't line up perfectly. And then she goes back to the small town guy. It wasn't that his job was wrong, it was that the lives didn't line up. So
Yeah.
what else are we gonna talk about?
I just got this question. Oh, did you have one?
No, go ahead.
Okay. I just got this question before when I was reading through. And we did talk about like the whole argument thing. And so do you think that it's okay to resolve an argument like after the fact? Or is like from your perspective, is that something that you're like, no, like we're not leaving here until you figure this out?
You, as in a relationship, you learn how each other fights and you learn how each other fights better and what's better for each person.
Yeah.
So for instance, when Roxy and I get into an argument, I want to figure it out right now. We're not leaving the table right now.
You're not going
I don't
nowhere.
care. I don't care if you yell, if you scream, if you sling, like whatever. Right now, we're figuring it out. We're not getting out of this table until it's figured out. Roxy's the exact opposite. Roxy is like, I'm mad at you right now.
Give me a second.
No, not give me a second. Give me the night. I'm going to bed. We'll talk about it tomorrow.
Yeah.
So for the first couple of years of marriage, it was like, I'm like, there's no resolution. Like you don't even, you just wake up and pretend like nothing ever happened. Her mind was, because when I grew up, I learned like my parents fought. So there was a lot of yelling. There was a lot of screaming. So resolution in my mind is, this is how we solve the problem, but we're going to figure it out before we leave here. And so my family never resolved their problems. So I thought I was being better. I'm going to yell and we're going to scream and we're going to say what we got to say. And then at the end of it, I'm going to say, I love you. And then we're going to go about our night. Roxy grew up in a single mom's home where they shut down. So there's a conflict, they shut down. So now she wants to shut down and do it. And so part of that was everybody has family drama and everybody has family things. Again, no family's perfect. And it doesn't negate, I can't marry this person because they have a bad family. But it also has to cause a question of like, can we work through these things and can we talk through them through? So learning how to fight when you get married is one of the most important things you can do, because you're going to fight, you're going to disagree.
Yeah.
But how do you fight fair? Fighting fair is giving respect and honor to the other person, letting them share their feelings, not trying to cut them off and giving them a chance to share exactly how they feel, and then coming up with a resolution for each other.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's not, some couples fight differently, whatever. I would say there's probably not I can't give you, here's the perfect solution to fight. I would say sometimes you need your time and sometimes you need to figure it out right now, but the couple has to come together and figure that out, what works for them. And also let each other know, like when I respond this way, it's not me saying I don't care, but this is the way that I need time to process. And then you coming up with an agreement of, we'll come together in an hour or 2 hours or 4 hours or 5 hours or whatever that is. Same thing I tell with students. You'll never win a fight when you're in the middle of the argument, like with your parents. You'll never prove yourself right if they're already mad at you. Same thing, it goes in your relationships as well. And so it's like, sometimes you need to step away and then reframe and put back together. So yeah.
I
How do
agree.
y'all fight?
We're the same way. I'm the one that wants to handle it right then and there, and Destiny needs time to process everything.
That's
Destiny-
actually surprising. I see that the other way with you guys.
Same.
No, it's definitely, I'm the one that's like, let's find a resolution. And she's like, let's let's wait. Like she needs to process everything because she gets too mad is her
Yeah,
issue.
I was about to say Destiny. I feel like she
Right?
would be like,
So-
"I'm walking away because I'm."
Right?
Literally.
And it's funny that you say like fighting fair and unfair, right? Is because what I realized as our relationship kind of progressed, the first couple years, it was always this big old argument over small stuff because I wanted to handle it right then and there, and she needed time to process. And then I began to realize I was fighting unfair because I knew how to process my feelings right then and there and make an argument on the spot. She needed time to think about why she felt a certain way. And because I was pressuring her to have that conversation right there, I was going to win every single fight. So I was trying to force my way to the victory by having it right then and there.
And then then your fight goes from one
This-
thing to 75 other things that are relevant to the
Exactly.
moment.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep. Let me ask you guys a question. What is so hard about dating? Should have probably started the podcast like this.
Probably.
What is so hard about dating?
Okay, I'll go. I feel like for me at least, I have such a picture in my head of what I want, how I want it to look in the long run, and what I want right now in the season that I almost am like, okay, if it's not lining up to all of that, like done by. But at the same time, I feel like something that's so difficult is like this world now, dating in this world and trying to find someone now is like, it's terrible. Again, I feel like because I probably have so many like thoughts and I've had so many plans in my mind of like, okay, I want this, this, and this. I need it to go this way. All of that I kind of had to like give to the Lord because it got like, I was more of focusing on my own will than his will with that. But I honestly would say having that picture of the every little specific thing that I want. I feel like, I don't know how to word that.
I think for me, the hardest thing. This is the first relationship I've ever been in, so it was weird. But the hardest thing for me was always intention. Like, what's your intentions? Like, I was always kind of like, I gave people chances, but I always ended up being very closed off just because I'm like, what are you trying to do? Like, it's just weird. And my dad, I'm like a giant daddy's girl, so having my dad always like, you need to be careful. Like, everybody's always gonna tell you what you want to hear. They're gonna sweet talk you, this and that. So every time that I was like started to like someone or like started almost like giving in a little bit, those words will come in my head and like, what are you trying to do? You know? So it was always the intention of like, and then granted, they usually were worldly guys. So that was always like a thought in the back of my head. So I was always very driven on like, what do you want with me? kind of thing. Yeah.
What where do you get your picture? Like, where do you think it comes from? Where do you think your picture of dating comes from?
I would say a mixture of just like, growing up watching Disney movies and like all that we talk about all the time of that perfect fantasy, but that and also just like my parents of, okay, like I see what they have and I see the struggles and like that they've gone through and they come out like better than before almost. So it's like I see that and I see like all those different things. Like I feel like it's so many different like puzzle pieces that like I put together with it. I feel like, but those are the two main ones though.
Yeah. Mine for sure definitely came from my parents. So, and even more like the fact that I feel like we had a very strong family dynamic given that we were a blended family, but still like treated each other like we were like, you're my mom, you're my sister, like there's no questions about it. And I think that my mom and dad did a good job like doing that, bringing us together, but because they brought themselves together like that. I don't know.
Any other questions?
I have a question. How do you know when you should break up? I ask it because when me and Destiny were dating, we actually did have like a big old breakup when we were in college.
So Roxy and I, we dated for 4.5 years. Been married for 14. We never dated. We never broke up. We did almost break up one time. I don't remember over what or why, but it was actually in the church parking lot. I remember we were talking after church. We almost broke up one night and decided not to. So I think when you should say, hey, enough is enough, or we need to take a break, or we need to break up, is probably when there's a couple different ways. One, I think, is if you've broke boundaries that you can't get back on track, you're suffering in your relationship with God. And so you probably need to, when that person has become God to you, what does that mean by that is when that person has replaced God for you, meaning everything's about that person. You wake up thinking about how that person thinks and you don't care anymore about how God thinks. I also think if you have the right counsel around you, because every situation is a little bit different, they could help you see like, hey, maybe you should take a break or maybe you shouldn't take a break. If you feel like you're settling, you can always take a break and then come back.
Yeah.
But if you settle too long, you get into a rut and then it's hard to rebound from that. So I guess it depends on the situation. Every situation's probably different. I think getting the right counsel around you, not everybody needs to know your business, but if you're a dating couple, at least one other couple should know everything about your relationship. If you're struggling to know, the idea of dating again is, as a man, is to find out, is she worth dying for? And for the woman is he worth submitting to? And if you're struggling with that, or if you realize I got so much stuff that I need to work out as a single person because there's so many things. If you don't do singleness right, you won't do dating right. If you don't do dating right, you can't do marriage right. And so that's why even when we talk about these things, like even if you're married, these things are for you, because if you didn't do them right when you were single, there's probably blocks even in your marriage that you need to go back to work on.
You gotta go back
So
and figure it out.
I don't know of a specific, like, this is the time you need to break up. I do know that there probably are times that needs to happen, though. I do know people that broke up and then they realized we are supposed to be together and they got right back together. I also know people that maybe should have broke up and they didn't. And then later they were divorced because they realized we should have maybe taken a break during that time. So each situation is probably a little bit different. I would say have somebody and be willing to listen to counsel for the current situation.
That's good.
So you feel like breaks are healthy?
I was just gonna ask.
I think it
feel like
depends. I
that's
think
such
there's
a
drama,
conversation.
right? Like, oh, we're going to take a break. Oh my gosh, now we're not. Oh, we're going to take a break. Sometimes when couples can use that as an excuse. I want to do whatever I want to do. So we're on a break right now. Oh, but now I'm needy and I want to be in a relationship. So we're back in a relationship. And that's manipulation. And so manipulation is trying to make somebody feel guilty for something or trying to get something out of somebody. And so, I think it can go both ways. So each situation is a little bit different. Having godly, wise counsel of another couple that's a step ahead of you, that can look into those things and call forth in those. So I think breaks can be healthy, but I also think breaks can be used for manipulation and drama as well. So if there's always drama in my relationship, I just don't like drama. My wife is black and white. There is no gray. And she'll look at you in the face and say, you're wrong. And there's not like, let's teeter on this stuff. And so I love that. Neither one of us like carry drama because of that. And so, I don't know. I couldn't deal with drama.
Me and Destiny were toxic when we were dating. So we broke up, got back together. I mean, she was my idol.
Because you were so
crossed
young,
boundaries.
though.
Yeah. And I didn't know Christ for the majority of our dating relationship. So like I would push her to cross boundaries, and then I would feel guilty because I made her like start losing her relationship with God, and it was bad.
Manipulation.
Manipulation, yeah.
But you didn't know Christ, so
I didn't know Christ.
there's grace now.
Yeah. The Lord has changed me.
Grace.
The Lord has changed you,
Amen. Look at the Lord.
What do you guys think?
About?
What do I think?
Anything? I have no
That's a
clue.
lot.
I don't know. I think I've always thought like breaks were like what the. I was literally just talking to my sisters about it because I never like agreed with breaks. Like because people would say breaks and then it wasn't never like we're breaking up for now. It was always just like, oh no, we're just gonna take a break, and then people would end up like doing what they want and all that stuff. So I was always like, I don't think breaks are like necessary. Just from my point of view back then. And then I had a question about other people knowing stuff that you were saying. Like how I don't know how to word it correctly.
Say it and we can reword it for you.
So like for me, I have Derek and Destiny, and then I have Carla and Jose, but I lean more towards like Carla and Jose just because they're like always around more. I like grew up with them, so they've kind of been the people that we lean on, and Jonathan stays with them when he comes here. So they're like always, but I think that do you think having someone who's like, because they obviously go to church, they love the Lord, but having someone who I consider technically to be like my own mentors spiritually, are they the people that like, you know, I should be going to, or like having my mentors for a spiritual and then having mentors for like my relationship is like a good idea? Do you think that it should just be one whole thing? Like, what do you think on that?
I think it can be different.
Mhm.
I think it can be different depending on the person. I do think if you have a spiritual mentor in your life, they should probably be heavily involved in your relationship.
Yeah.
Obviously, if they're helping you grow as a person,
Mhm.
because they're going to be the ones to see changes in you.
Yeah.
Because they've been walking with you
Mhm.
a little bit different. I don't think it's bad to have more than one people.
Yeah.
And then sometimes what happens if you have more than one though, and then they disagree on something, and it's like, well, who do we listen to because they
Yeah.
disagree? And so you kind of got to play it careful when
Yeah.
it comes to that. But yeah, I'm not sure. I think every situation to change a little bit different. I know if it was me and I was like, these are my spiritual mentors, I would want them to be my relationship mentors if they have a healthy marriage as well.
Yeah.
Because I've lived life with them, and I think mentorship. How do you allow somebody to mentor you? It comes with trust.
Mhm.
So there's a trust element that, like, if I'm allowing you to mentor me, I'm trusting you with my life and with areas of my life and to speak
Yeah.
to them. I've given you that access.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I would say your situation might be a little bit different. And so I would want all those people to be involved. I
Yeah.
would probably, if I was serious about couples mentorship, even call all of them together for a meeting and say, hey, these two couples, we're giving both of you guys access into our life. We want you to hold us accountable. We want you to speak into that. So that way it's not weird of like, well, I want you to talk about this and you talk about this. I'd probably call them all together, have like, hey, this is a big family meeting time. And,
Yeah.
you know, let's talk about it. And let's talk
Yeah.
about here's Jonathan and I's goals for our relationship. Here's where we see ourselves. And here's where we respect and we see you guys. And so we want you to speak into those areas.
Yeah.
That way it's not weird. Like,
Yeah.
people make things weird.
Yeah.
Like, people say, oh, it's awkward. Well, everything's awkward that we make awkward. So I don't leave things out to imagination or, you know, whatever. So that's probably what I would do. I would
Yeah.
call both couples together and be like, hey, we love both of you. We want both of you to speak in our life. And here's where we are. And so, you know.
How do you feel about family having a role in that? Just because you know how I am with my parents. My parents are very involved in my life. So I had a short, brief chat with Derek and Destiny about it. And they pretty much said, like, there's nothing really wrong with it, but they're always going to see, like, the best in you. So, like, what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, you want people to see the best in you. You want people to protect you, right? And so I'm all for it. I think you probably want somebody else as well.
Yeah.
And then you got to come up with what happens when you got to be mature enough to have conversations with your family. That if you disagree with something they're saying or whatever it is, but at the end of the day, all of that is kind of by example or kind of situational based. And so I hope my daughters, use me. I hope I have that relationship with them.
Yeah.
And so I think with your parents, you might be in a unique situation because of your parents.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. I think having multiple people pour into your life is always a good thing. I also think you take every advice and everything that a mentor speaks into your life with a grain of salt. Always compare it to what they're saying to what the Bible says, and then always bring it to God. When I give you advice, I never want you to think that what I say is law. I want you to hear it and take it for what it is, just advice. And at the end of the day, you're going to have to be the grown up and make your own decisions.
What do you guys think is killing relationships today? Biggest relationship killer?
Comparison.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Distractions.
It's like those are the roots to like everything else that can go wrong.
Because it's like you see, take them freaking Hallmark movies, for example. It's like you see it and you have an expectation of a relationship that's supposed to be like all jolly and happy on Christmas time, and then it's like, then you get to it and it's like, oh snap, like this isn't how it actually goes. And so like it's almost like a shock that it's like this isn't what it's really like, and then it ends up bringing
even that thought of like unmet expectations. I feel like can tear down a lot if there's the lack of communication.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that kills relationships is people aren't healthy themselves. And so they think a relationship's going to solve their problems, and it's not. if you are addicted to pornography and if you don't get healed from it, it's not going to go away because now you're in a relationship.
Yeah.
Right.
It's going to continue and it's going to continue to get worse.
Right.
If you are greedy, just because now you're in a relationship, you're not going to be less greedy. And
Yeah.
so, dealing with yourself as a whole person and becoming whole. I think we just look at relationships as this is the most important thing. It's going to solve all my problems. But even when we look in the Bible, I even said this, I believe, in the message last month in Young Adults, but Eve couldn't, or when Adam and Eve messed up, they couldn't cover each other. They still needed God to cover them. And so they were the perfect couple for each other, but yet they still couldn't solve each other's issues. When it came to a sin issue, God had to solve them. And so Jonathan cannot cover Kika's sin issues, no matter how good or bad he is.
Yeah.
She cannot cover his sin issue, no matter how good or bad she is. And so I think we turn into thinking this person's a God. They're going to cover all my problems, and they're going to make me whole. And we forget that God has to make us whole.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah, that's great.
Any other questions before we close?
Oh, we were talking about this earlier. The sense of dating when it comes to dating for 4 months compared to dating, like, I know you talk about like dating around the year, so you know how a person acts different times around the year.
We were talking about the 3-month rule. That's what it was. Yeah.
The 3-month rule.
Yeah, I never heard of 3
You
months
should
rule. This
dive
is
in
me
on
personally.
that.
So I think a lot of things play into this. I think age plays into it. Obviously, if you're a little bit older, I know people that have dated for 2 months and they've been
Just
married for 30
wild.
years. I know people that didn't date.
My parents
They
didn't date.
dated for like 3
That's
weeks and they were married.
crazy.
So basically, I know people like that. Me personally, our audience is young adults. So if I'm a young adult, what I would want, preferably, me and Roxy dated for 4.5 years. We dated right when we started college, and we both knew that we wanted to graduate college before we got married. And so that was just kind of, we knew we were going to be dating for that time frame. But I think at minimum, I would want to date 1 year. And the reason that I say that is I would want to go through 1 calendar year with that person. The reason I say that is because let's say somebody gets crazy in July. Let's say they have a lot of drama in July, like family members have died, like there's a lot of trauma.
Yeah.
There's things that you just don't know about. And it happens in July for whatever reason. There are people like this. And then you dated them from January, February, March, and then you're like, you got married, and then July comes and you're like, this is a different person. Like, this person's crazy. Or like, not that you can't be a, Christmas fanatic, right? But let's say they're fanatical around Christmas, like over fanatical, and you can't deal with that. Well, you didn't know this person was like, that probably didn't come up in the first date.
Right.
Tell me about yourself. Well, I'm a Christmas fanatic. It probably didn't come out unless you've seen it. And so I would want to see them through all seasons to find out if they're crazy or not. That's just so. Mine's calendar rule. I don't know.
Calendar
Maybe
rule.
365 rule. I don't know.
Yeah.
But again, if you're
365.
older, that's probably a little bit different because life has changed a little bit and
Right.
you're just different. But I think a young adult age, I would say I'd want to at least date 1 year before thinking about marriage.
Yeah, for sure, at least 1 year. I think the longer, like dating for too long, obviously you don't want to do, right?
Right.
But also, like, the longer you are in a relationship, the more, like, time reveals things. So as you are in that relationship for longer and longer, more and more things are going to be revealed about that person. And it's going to help inform you about who this person is. And the deeper you grow intimately and the more emotionally connected you get, right, is going to eventually help you in your marriage. Because if not, you're going to enter, like when me and Destiny got married, we had dated from 14 years old
That's
and got married at 20,
Oh my God.
right? And that's insane, right? But it really informed me about her. But then because we weren't adults yet, it didn't inform me at all. So when we became adults and we actually grew into becoming adults, I had to figure out who she was, because she wasn't the 16-year-old girl that had dated, right? So it really started to let me know who she really was, because we really started having those deeper conversations as we aged.
Yeah.
You guys got married when you were 20?
I was 20 years old when I got married.
Insane.
I was 22. So we dated from 18 to 22.
My dad was
Whoa.
like 35, I think. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Crazy.
Well, my dad,
How old are you?
20. About to be 21.
How old are you?
19.
So,
Wow.
Yeah.
That's like me being married right now. That just seems
That's
absolutely
insane.
crazy.
My mom had a kid when she was 19, so it's.
Thank you,
I
Jesus.
think I told her the other day, I was like, I'm already doing better than you. Like, you can't already like I did better than you. She was like, yeah.
Hey, young adults, we meet the first Tuesday of every month. We had this past month was probably one of our most incredible services.
It really was.
If you've struggled with how to know if somebody is worth your time, should you date them, should you not date them, we went through these 8 filters, talked about them in detail. We also talked about after you're dating somebody, how do you know when the right time to maybe get married is, or how do I know if I'm supposed to marry this person? And so, great service. You can watch it. It's called No Returns on our YouTube page. This is our Young Adult Ministry Church and So. We meet the first Tuesday of every month. We'd love to get you connected. You can DM us with any questions you have. Kika, Aaliyah, final comments?
No,
Come to
this
Young
was
Adults.
awesome.
Thanks for joining
See
us.
you on. Won't see you on Tuesday. We'll be at Nationals, but I'll see you on.
This coming month, you
online.
won't be there, yes. You'll be
Yeah.
at Nationals, but all the
Yes,
future ones you
sir.
will be.
I'm gonna watch it online.
Love you guys.
See ya.
Bye bye.
Deuces.